you ever watched the world and felt that nothing made sense? That you couldn't comprehend the trends of current events? Well, ladies and gents, this is the show of the year. Yes, a modern life is stressful and it's hard to pay heed, but this comprehensive night should bring you right up to speed. It's all that you need. This is the show of the year. So what can we glean from 2015 that Marty McFly got wrong? Why, there's no flying cars, but there's water on Mars. There are tragedies in Paris, but Taylor Swift loves Calvin Harris. And Tony Abbott's gone. But there are many revelations as the seasons unfold, and there'll always be a dozen crazy tales to be told. So lo and behold, this is the show of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2015 show of the year. We have a night for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a night for you packed. I'm telling you, that green room down there is packed with talent, and they are ready to, packed, was that too much saliva? It felt like it might have been. They are ready to step you through this glorious year as it was. That means we're going to have, for those of you who haven't been before, around about 12 speakers, give or take, each of them taking a month, each of them filling you in on a little bit of the year from their perspective. And when you put it all together, you will understand everything about everything. That's our guarantee. 'Cause now Christmas time looms like a Volkswagen's fumes, but the rear vision's clear somehow. We hope to be blessed with a mystery guest, but we have no helicopter, so unfortunately we've swapped her for Julian Assange right now. Julian Assange! Welcome, Julian Assange! Again! 3 years. Keep trying to book him. What's his agent's number? Let's get this done. Get it done, will you? So okay, yeah, all right. Still, there are so many people to talk. And with every new perspective, things will fall into place. It's a snapshot of the planet as it tumbles through space for the whole human race. This is the show of the year. Is that clear? For the whole human race, this is the show of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, we do indeed have a wonderful array of speakers for you tonight. To get us kicked off for the marvellous month of January, would you please welcome SBS News' own Santilla Chingaipe.
Hello, good evening everyone. I must admit that prior to the Charlie Hebdo shootings, I wasn't too familiar with the magazine's work. I'd heard about the Muhammad cartoons causing offence over the years, but I never really bothered to read further than the news headlines on the issue. In order to better understand why it has been so polarising, I decided at the time to search online for cartoons appearing in the publication over the years. And there, in all their glory, were cartoons of everyone from the Pope to the Prophet Muhammad to Jesus being made fun of. Charlie Hebdo was formed in 1970 as a left-wing satirical magazine after its predecessor was shut down by the French government. On its website, the publication says it provides a different angle on the news, an in-depth view beyond the everyday media, offering food for thought through humour and satire. It says it defends secularism and a racist free society while fighting against religions which inspire swarms of fools, rednecks who can't see further than the tip of their nose, the dot-com billionaires Googleizing the world, bankers who gamble our money away, and a list of others. Following the shootings of January the 7th, world leaders marched through the streets of Paris in apparent solidarity with France and those that stood in defence of free speech. The British Prime Minister at the time said the media had the right to offend and should not be subjected to revenge attacks for voicing their views, a view that was shared by many commentators following the incident. In what seemed to be an unpopular view in the aftermath of the shootings, Pope Francis took issue with the publication by saying that there were limits to freedom of expression and that one cannot make fun of faith. A few months later, about a dozen prominent authors protested the awarding of the PEN Freedom of Expression Prize in the United States to Charlie Hebdo because they took issue with what they said was a reward for the magazine's controversial cartoons. In it, they wrote, "There is a critical difference between staunchly supporting expression that violates the acceptable and enthusiastically rewarding such expression. The magazine seems to be entirely sincere in its anarchic expressions of disdain towards organised religion. But in an unequal society, equal opportunity offence does not have an equal effect. Power and prestige are elements that must be recognised in considering almost any form of discourse, including satire." So taking all of this into consideration and from seeing bits of the magazine translated into English, I had a few questions. I decided to take a step back and look at the lead up to the horrific events in January. In 2006, Charlie Hebdo reprinted a series of cartoons mocking the Prophet Muhammad that were originally published by a Danish newspaper. That prompted a lawsuit, which was ultimately unsuccessful against the then editor. Some Muslim groups accused the publication of inciting hatred, but the court ruled that it was shielded by laws protecting freedom of expression. In 2011, the magazine's office was firebombed a week after it ran an issue which it said was guest edited by the Prophet himself, who was drawn on the cover saying, "100 lashes if you don't die laughing." The publication sees itself as an equal opportunity offender in its rejection of accusations of an Islamophobic agenda and cites covers that have mocked the Pope and Jewish figures, among others. Charlie sees itself as a defender of what it regards as French liberal values, including secularism. As a journalist, I do believe that all religions should be open to satire and criticism. But should satire, as a form of journalism, be allowed to take sides? Freedom of expression is seen as a beacon of an open liberal society, the most basic of human rights which we in the West are proud of and tend to critique of other cultures that we perceive to make less of a commitment to upholding. In his opinion piece in the Daily Telegraph today, former Prime Minister Tony Abbott wrote that it's time Australians stopped being apologetic about the values that have made our countries as free, fair and prosperous. It is not culturally insensitive to demand loyalty to Australia and Western civilization. All cultures are not equal. When debating upholding Western values, are we making assumptions about cultures that we don't agree with? And in this debate, are we living up to these very ideals we seek to protect? Some Muslims view their religion as much more than that. They see it as a way of life, a civilization even. The same changes we see in the West, such as protecting the rights of gays and lesbians, may very well be taking place in Islam. I should also point out that not everyone in the West believes in gay people having the same rights offered to heterosexual people. Islam and Christianity broadly share similar values. Muslims too share the same principles of the preservation of life, tolerance and respect to other faiths and communities and peace. When we critique Islam, is it a one-way street? Are we also open to the criticism of Western values by Muslims, or do we dismiss them as simply not being able to take on these markers of a modern democracy? And is freedom of speech unlimited? When journalists are censored on reporting about certain stories, whose interests are we protecting? When politicians call to defend freedom of speech, yet slowly erode the freedoms of individuals by enacting laws that allow governments to collect mass communications data. When arguing the case of Charlie Hebdo and freedom of speech, we must ask what agenda the publication was pushing, consciously or unconsciously. What assumptions were being made about Muslims and their belief systems, and how are we in the media continuing to perpetuate and reinforce these perceptions? And whose hands does that feed into? The writer Teju Cole noted that Charlie Hebdo cartoonists were not merely gadflies, not simple martyrs to the right to offend, they were ideologues. Just because one condemns their brutal murders, one must not condone their ideology. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Santilla Chingaipe. And now, to unravel the mysteries of February, would you please welcome Nicholas J. Johnson.
Very much. My name is Nicholas J. Johnson. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this evening. I do feel a little bit intimidated to be up here this evening with some extraordinary minds. I am not the most politically engaged person in the world. I am somewhat politically engaged, but just not as much as some of the other people that are sitting backstage right now. Just to give you an idea of where I am, no matter how hard I try, I can never get a tweet to appear on the screen during Q&A. But I've had two appear in the Herald Sun. So that's the level that we're operating at tonight, just before we start. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the events of February, when the late, great Tony Abbott, God rest his soul, faced his first leadership challenge and, with an approval rating of just 24%, survived. It was an extraordinary event. At the time, Abbott came out of the party room and said that it was a shot across the bow, which was a line that he had taken directly from his refugee policy. And also that it was a near miss. And that's wrong. It was not a near miss. He survived. 20 votes spare was what he had. That is not a near miss. A near miss is, just to give you a comparison, a near miss would be what would happen when an undergraduate Tony Abbott punches the wall next to your head when he beats you, when you beat him at a student election, which sadly is something that actually happened. So, why did Tony Abbott survive this? Because there's no way that he could possibly have survived. It was miraculous. He was really, it was some backbenchers, but we know he was going up against Malcolm Bligh Turnbull, a man whose very name, Bligh, suggests mutiny. 64% of the population were in favour of having him as Prime Minister. I'm sure all of you were sitting at home, the lefties that you are, saying, well, I mean, if we have to have a Liberal Prime Minister, not looking so smart now, are we? Anyway, so I was thinking about this. How did he pull this off? How did he get away with this? And how can I express to you this event and what it meant to the nation? And I thought, look, we're going to have some people come up tonight. We're going to have some songs. We're going to have some poetry. We're going to have some comedy. We're going to have all sorts of things. But the only way in which I can truly capture the essence of this political prestidigitation is through the art of magic. That wasn't a joke. I am a professional magician. I love that. Oh, thank you. So if I am going to perform a feat of political prestidigitation, I will need a beautiful assistant. I'm going to come down from the stage and choose someone. I love when no one wants to look me in the eyes. It's okay, it's fine. You can step away. Would you mind helping me? Is that okay? You're on the edge of your seat. Would you mind joining me? Is that okay?
All right.
Everyone give him a big round of applause. Come up. Wonderful. Come here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a great deal. You can come and join me over here if they wouldn't mind. There we go. You don't need to take a seat right yet. Okay. What was your name?
David.
David. Okay. For tonight, you are going to be Tony Abbott.
Oh my God.
I had a nightmare like that too. Now, and I should explain, for those who've never seen a magic show, magicians absolutely love ham-fisted, whimsical metaphors. We just absolutely love them. We're like Michael Leunig with more sequins and less dodgy opinions on vaccination. No, I'm not going to get started on Michael Leunig. Anyway, so you will be Tony Abbott. Just some questions, just to make sure. What is the greatest thing that you have done for the women of Australia?
You have to ask them when they do the ironing, I suppose.
When they do the ironing. No, it was the carbon tax. Oh, yeah, the carbon tax was the greatest thing. Oh, it's just sad just to say those words outside. And what was the 1788 British invasion of Australia? What was that?
Oh, supposedly, according to Tony Abbott, that was the beginning of Australia, wasn't it?
It was not just the beginning of Australia. It was a fine example of foreign investment. Okay, this is too painful. So let's skip straight to the chase. In February, Tony Abbott had to face the chop.
Oh my God.
So would you mind taking a seat in the stool for me, if you could? All right, so this is it's a guillotine. And this is obviously, the chop was something that was hanging over a lot of politicians over the last several years. Obviously, Kevin Rudd. Did not survive the chop. Julia Gillard. Did not survive the chop. So now it's your turn to see whether you can survive the chop. I should explain, you can buy like sort of trick ones. I made this myself. I've never done this before. I'm sure it'll be fine. So the idea is, you'll bring your hand around the back here. And you just sort of rest it in the, move that. Just, yeah, put it in there. In there, that's it, brilliant, great. And can you just make sure your fingers are tucked inside the basket? Now, let me just put this on in here.
Stop my hand.
Don't, okay. All right, so just put your fingers inside the basket because we don't want them to roll into the front row. So right now, you are Tony Abbott in the party room. 24% of the nation supports you. You're an idiot. The blade is hanging. The question is, can you survive? So just relax, and let's see what happens when we drop the blade. Sorry, I'm not... No, I'll just give... What's the worst could happen? Oh! And he survives, ladies and gentlemen. Stand up, please. The first and only applause for Mr. Tony Abbott. Thank you very much. Grab a seat. Of course, whether he survives any longer is something that will need to be discussed later on in the evening. and I'm sure we can think of a few more reasons he had to go. Thank you very much and good night. Thank you.
Nicholas J. Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. I should say that Nicholas's book, while I'm here in the mysterious darkness, I should say that Nicholas's book, actually I'll peek out of the dark. Hello, I'm not meant to be on stage at the moment. Nicholas's book, Chasing the Ace, that's correct, isn't it, Nicholas? Yes, it is. That's one of the many books on sale in the foyer from Paperback Books that, they've caught me. Found me. Many of the books on sale in the foyer from the marvellous Paperback Books who have put in, time and attendees and all that sort of stuff to make sure those are available. So please snap a copy up if you feel so inclined. Let us not dilly or dally, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for March. It is time for Marc Fennell. Would you please give it up for Marc Fennell, ladies and gentlemen?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How you going? Well, that was a bit shit. How you going? All right. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Marc Fennell and I'm a film critic primarily. I don't know what I'm doing here. They just let me in. And as a film critic, can I just say 2015 gets a solid 3.5 stars-ish. It was a massive year in movies, technology, popular culture. It was the year that Adele proved you can still make billions of dollars from the music industry, and all you need to do is never get over a relationship or upgrade your flip phone. Actually, I'll tell you what, the best review I read of Adele is this. She's like a Pixar movie. Is she cool? No. But will you be satisfied by her album? Yes. Will you cry? Yes. Will it make $1 billion? Yes. There you go, the perfect Adele review. It was the year, look, people have always argued on the internet, but this year the culture of hot takes, takedowns, take-a-backs and a lie-down reached a sort of parodic apex. It was like this moment of no return. One Friday in March, it wasn't March, but let's pretend it was, the entire internet was consumed with one giant debate. It was the biggest debate of the year. It wasn't how to solve ISIS or the Syrian refugee crisis. It wasn't how to get the image of David Cameron fucking a pig's head out of your head. It wasn't the raging debate of just how drunk is Mark Latham every time he opens his mouth on a scale of 1 to Robert Downey Jr. in the 90s. The biggest debate that consumed the internet in 2015 was whether or not it was a blue dress or a gold dress. This is how you know the terrorists have won. It was the year that Taylor Swift told us she had bad blood. It's not like we didn't warn her about having unprotected sex with Charlie Sheen. My wife told me to cut that. She was right. Always listen to your wife. But the real game changer for me in 2015 came in March. After years of Australians watching through means that can at best be described as extra-legal, Netflix launched in Australia. And with it came Stan, Presto, and a mysterious adhesive bond to my couch, a sort of psychological Aryl diet that once you were affixed to your couch, you never quite left, and episode after episode would just roll, and provided the new improved elasticity of your bladder hadn't been pushed beyond its bounds, you'd just sit there, passing out to the sweet devil tones of Kevin Spacey, and then you'd wake up some hours later and the screen would just be there blank looking at you going, "You haven't done anything in a while. Are you still watching?" Thank you, passive-aggressive Netflix. I am fucking still watching. I wasn't. After about a week of owning Netflix, I realised I had a problem. So to fight this very modern problem, I found a very modern solution. I would still be addicted to Netflix. That wasn't going to stop. But I would do something called second screening. I would Google things while I was watching Netflix. Can I just say, it's a fucking terrible idea. It's particularly bad with Disney movies. Now, I can't see any of you, but yell out if you've seen the movie Beauty and the Beast. Right. If you're Googling what actually happened in the original story of Beauty and the Beast, it completely ruins the Netflixing experience of that movie. So to back it up, Beauty and the Beast, a beautiful French bookworm. Belle gets held in a fairly illegal home detention scenario with a grumpy, behorned wolf dog, goat pig thing, built with the proportions of a linebacker and some sort of royal blood. He softens his heart, she softens his heart, and he turns back into Prince Ridge Forrester. Everyone lives happily ever after until the 4 direct-to-VHS sequels. The end! It's done, except if your second screening, as I did in March, something terrible happens. It's a great movie. It's got mystery, sadness, wit, singing cutlery. Angela Lansbury sings a power ballad about interspecies romance. I don't know what more you could ask for a film, and then in my Googling I discovered the original Russian version of the movie. It's called The Enchanted Svarich. Now in the pre-movie version, the prince is actually a triple-headed winged snake demon, because there's no point inventing a fictitious beast if it's not going to make you throw up an eye contact. The story starts with a merchant who gets caught wandering into the snake demon's land, picking up some flowers, and so Mr. Snake of Your Nightmares takes a very dim view of trespassers and he demands the merchant hands over his daughter to live with him. Now she agrees, weirdly, and she finds it's actually quite a well-managed operation. The problem is she's got no one to talk to apart from Cobra Commander. Loneliness isn't the only peril, though. It turns out Rapey McSnakington moves his bed closer to her in this original version every night, until one night he jumps into her bed. The next day, she freaks out, and he offers her this ultimatum. You can leave, but please come back, or I'll kill myself. Weirdly, Disney did not go with this version. In the original version, she stays out, she stays a bit late, she comes back, he's dead. She proceeds to kiss one of his 3 vodka stench heads. Bam, he's transformed into a prince. Vodka shots for all. Now, if I had to pass some meaning from this as I'm watching the Disney version and reading the Russian version, if I had to nail down a moral, it would be this: stay the fuck away from Russia. But then it gets worse. I watched another Disney movie on Netflix. I watched Pinocchio. Now, the Walt Disney version of Pinocchio is iconic, it's charming. In the beginning, it's adorable. The problem is, once you start reading about it, it gets worse. So, in the beginning, Pinocchio teases Geppetto mercilessly and he runs away. Geppetto chases him, but the old man is caught by a police officer who rightly questions why someone would even make a doll with a face erection and then rightly throw Geppetto in the brig. At this point, let's acknowledge that there are no good versions in the original version of Pinocchio. When the puppet eventually returns to Geppetto's house, he meets a 100-year-old cricket who tells him that naughty boys turn into donkeys. The cricket is clearly an asshole, so Pinocchio throws a hammer at him and kills him. Fuck not with Pinocchio. After a brush with fire, the still very much made of wood doll decides that he will go full native and start biting the paws off cats. Again, weirdly, not in the Disney version. He gets totally out of control. He meets a blue fairy who drops the not inconsiderable bombshell that she's actually dead and waiting for the people to take her body away. The good news is that despite Pinocchio's mega nose, he clearly can't smell the necrotising woman in front of him. Then, because Italian folktale writers are clearly in a grappa-soaked downward spiral, Pinocchio suffocates to death. The end. As it happens, the publishers of the original story felt that this was not a great place to end. And so as an addendum, they added where the corpse fairy rescues Pinocchio from the underworld, they hook up together until he becomes an asshole again. And then he becomes a donkey. He meets a musician who tries to turn his skin into a drum, drowns him in an ocean, the fish eats his flesh. I know, right? Pinocchio is suddenly a marionette skeleton at the bottom of the ocean with rocks wrapped around his neck. This, I believe, is where the term rock bottom originates. He gets eaten by a shark, finds Geppetto, repents, he becomes the world's greatest 3-foot tall aged care provider. The end. Again. Now at this point I'm thinking, I've made terrible, terrible viewing choices, so I decided I'd issue myself a challenge. Could I find, in my couch-based stupor, the weirdest thing on these new TV streaming services? That's when I found Lady Terminator. Has anyone ever heard of Lady Terminator? I did not think so. So, funny story. Back in the 1970s, the Indonesian government really wanted to build a local film industry. And as a result, the way to bring this on was they completely loosened all of the censorship laws around sex and violence. And filmmakers, shockingly enough, took great advantage of this. No journey through the trashiest, goriest movies in history is complete without Lady Terminator, sometimes known by its other title of Nasty Hunter. You have to say it like that, I've learned. It also comes with the tagline, she mates and then she exterminates. So, to set up the concept of Lady Terminator, it's based on a local Indonesian legend. 100 years ago, an evil blonde South Sea queen castrated her male lover for failing to satisfy her. Her next lover feels that he can tame the queen and inexplicably coaxes a snake from her vagina. Or at least that's what we're led to believe. The Lady Terminator effects budget really only allowed for somebody to draw a snake in texture on the frames, so it's a bit hard to work it out. They haven't done a re-release on Blu-ray, so it's hard to really tell. The Queen, as it turns out, was not happy about losing her vagina snake, and she curses her lover. She comes back with a very specific threat. I will live over a century, and in 100 years I will kill your granddaughter. Fast forward to present day. We're in Indonesia where Tanya, who is an anthropologist who's investigating the South Sea Queen, she keeps telling us she's an anthropologist, repeatedly, like 34 times in the film. I'm a lady, not an anthropologist, as though those things are mutually exclusive. Anyway, Tanya is scuba diving when her boat capsizes in a tsunami and she's dragged to the bottom of the ocean where she is possessed by the Texter snake and emerges naked from the sea? Let's go with C. She's been possessed by the South Sea Queen. From this point on, the film is literally a remake of Terminator. Powered by her newfound vagina serpentata, Tanya heads to Jakarta. I invented a term, pretty proud. She heads to Jakarta to track down a pop singer called Erica, who is the Queen's lover's granddaughter. You following this story right? Yes? Good. I'm going to assume you're nodding your head, I can't see. On Tanya's trail, there's also a group of cops who specialise in dialogue that is so bad a plastic horn attached to an anus would make more cohesive sentences. A lot of people get maimed, death count steeply rises. The director seemingly realises after 20 minutes he hasn't had sex for the last 3 minutes, and so Tanya starts sleeping with men and then castrating them. The vigorous denobbing process helps keep up her strength, also the plot demands. The cops hunting her down, who are completely insane, have the most amazing dialogue. All three guys have died with their cocks bitten off, says one guy. It could be a small animal, says the other guy. An eel, says the first one. I've heard of the ultimate blowjob, but this is too much. Yes, it is. Tanya is very resilient in this movie, and you have to remember it's 3 a.m. when I'm watching this, questioning every life choice I've ever made. She survives attacks by tanks, helicopters, firebombs, ancient prophets that talk like Yoda and shoot pulsating globules of magic at her eyes. But just when it looks like Erica has met her sticky end, she inexplicably remembers that she has a magic dagger, and she plunges it into Tanya's neck, killing her in a blaze of neon light, dodgy special effects, and a profoundly violent interpretation of performative feminism. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was when I decided to turn off Netflix. So I'm here to warn you and offer you hope. You too can avoid the draw of movie after movie on internet streaming services that launched in 2015. All you need is a three-headed monster, a murderous puppet, and a vagina dentata. Thank you very much.
Marc Fennell, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are already up to April at this point. April! Doesn't the year just fly by? And, we've got a bit of a tale of woe, a bit of a tale of sadness. Those of you who are regular attendees of the show of the year know that there are occasional incidents that you can do nothing about in the immediate days leading up to show of the year. Kick it off, guys, as you feel it. This space here, ladies and gentlemen, is the space where the lectern should be. And standing behind it should be Mr. Tom Keneally. Tom is sick. So, Tom, get well. We said, Tom, oh, it's like a gospel choir. I don't know. I'm sure he's at home in bed and he's suddenly gone, oh, I feel a bit better. But we thought that the topic that Tom was due to speak on was well worth speaking on and filling in any place. So this has been a bit of a last-minute mad scramble. So apologies. But when I was a young man, I carried a pack and I lived the free life of a rover. From the Murray's Green Basin to the dusty outback, I waltzed my Matilda all over. But then in 1915, the country said, son, it's time you stopped rambling, there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat and they gave me a gun, and they sent me away to the war. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as the ship pulled away from the quay. And with all of the cheers, the flag waving in tears, we sailed off for Gallipoli. How well I remember that terrible day when the blood stained the sand and the water, and how in that hell that they called Suvla Bay, we were butchered like lambs at the slaughter. Johnny Turkey was waiting, he'd primed himself well. He showered us with bullets and rained us with shells, and in 10 minutes flat, well, he'd blown us to hell. Nearly blew us right back to Australia. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as we stopped to bury our slain. We buried ours and the Turks buried theirs, and we started all over again. Come on. Those that were left while we tried to survive in a mad world of blood, death and fire. For 10 weary weeks I kept myself alive, though around me the corpses piled higher. Then a big Turkish shell knocked me ass overhead. When I woke up in my hospital bed and saw what it had done, well, I wished I were dead. Never knew there were worse things than dying. For I'll go no more waltzing Matilda through the green bush far and free. To hump tendon pegs, a man needs both his legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. I know. So they gathered the crippled, the wounded and maimed, and they shipped us right back to Australia. The armless, the legless, the blind and insane, the brave wounded heroes of Suvla. And as our ship pulled into Circular Quay, I looked at the place where my legs used to be, and thanked Christ there was nobody waiting for me to grieve and to mourn and to pity. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as they carried us down the gangway. But nobody cheered, they just stood there and stared, and then turned their faces away. So now every April I sit on my porch and I watch the parades pass before me, and I see my old comrades, how proudly they march, reliving old dreams and past glories. But the old men march slowly, their bones stiff and sore, tired old men from a forgotten war. And the young people ask, what are they marching for? And I ask myself the same question. And the band played Waltzing Matilda. Old men still answer the call. But year after year the old men disappear. Someday no one will march there at all. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can I just point out Shannon Bourne on the guitar and Ennio Posabon on the keyboards. The other two were here when we got here, so... Ben Hendry on drums, Vincenzo Roberto on bass. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get on with May, which is the second leg of the double whammy disappointment, because Shelley Morris, who was meant to be here all the way from the Northern Territory, is instead still in the bloody Northern Territory. So we looked at it, we cast around. This, by the way, this was a notification that we received this morning. So we cast around everywhere we could, and I confess, with all the names we were calling, somewhere deep down I think we could confess to ourselves, we were looking for the blackest woman we could find for the particular topic of May to represent it. Ladies and gentlemen, to represent the month of May, Toby Halligan.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I received my phone call not 2 hours ago asking me to replace Shelley Morris, I thought, not again. Very well, I am... But taking my responsibility of being a privileged white man speaking on behalf of women... I know, what is this, Twitter? Seriously, though, I've attempted to cobble together some thoughts in the hour I had in traffic on the way here. So, enjoy. I make no apologies. Just like John Howard. So May for me was the month where I think big questions were asked about what it is to be an Australian. It was the month when ISIS won some major victories in the Syrian civil war, and murmurs began about intervening in that country, when people's citizenship was called into question, and Peter Dutton proposed restricting the ability of people to return here, when mutterings occurred once again about the burqa, and of course when Adam Goodes, Australian of the Year, was booed at a football match by a large section of the crowd, bringing a fundamental clash between two great Australian traditions, AFL and abusing Aborigines. Eddie Maguire, who's somewhat of an expert in both, even Eddie found himself quite flat-footed in the face of that controversy. And as always, white people were left bruised, because white people are, as we know, the easiest race to bruise. And you'll know that if you read the comments section on the Herald Sun. But there were major questions, and poor Andrew Bolt, Andrew Bolt, as you might have heard if you watch his national television show or read his national column or listen to his nationally televised radio show, Andrew was being censored. He was. He was being censored in his ability to comment on the Adam Goodes saga by racial vilification legislation, ladies and gentlemen. And it is a shame, isn't it, that white people no longer have the ability to abuse Aborigines as liberally as they'd like to, unless, of course, they're Eddie Maguire or another prominent AFL player. It's funny, my day job is I work at The Project on Channel 10, and we quite regularly get messages from people, white people, complaining about their rights being impinged upon. I received a message some time ago that was commenting from a white person talking about the inequality, and he was saying, the Racial Vilification Act restricts my rights. I can't fight back. I can't fight back. Every day on my way to work, I get abused by at least a dozen Aborigines. Every day I get called a white fuck on my way to work. And I can't do anything in return. Okay, first of all, where are you walking? Is it across Uluru? And what are you doing while you're walking? And are you Eddie Maguire? Because that would explain a lot, wouldn't it? There are other fundamental questions that were raised. There was talk of engaging in the Syrian civil war, which is, of course, something that we're now doing. And it kind of calls into question, is Australia just the lapdog of the United States, doomed to constantly intervene in other conflicts where we don't necessarily have much influence or control? And a lot of people would say things to me like, well, Toby, we've got to fight ISIS over there. We've got to fight the terrorists over there. Because if you don't fight the terrorists over there, we'll have to fight them over here, Toby. We'll have to fight them over here. Well, look, this could be a controversial idea, people of the Athenaeum Theatre, but why don't we try that for a change? I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems like ISIS has a bit of a natural home ground advantage, you know, like in those mountains around Syria, yeah? I would totally prefer to fight ISIS and the terrorists on Swanston Street than in the mountains around Damascus, yeah? Well, they have all these natural advantages. There is no fucking way they'll be able to work out how to use Mikey. None. Absolutely none. Not a chance in hell, folks. Not a chance in hell. May was, of course, the month as well where, along with contemplations of this kind of intervention, there were questions about whether or not we should deny people the right, if they go over there, their citizenship should be restricted. And these proposals were made by Peter Dutton, who took the job from Scott Morrison of immigration. Scott Morrison's the kind of guy you'd expect to see as maybe the villain in a Bond film, whereas Peter Dutton more likely to crop up in Scooby-Doo, you know? Can I be clear, though? I will say this for Peter Dutton. A lot of people point out that Barack Obama has provided an inspiration for African-American young people throughout the United States by sending them the message that they can overcome entrenched discrimination, they can overcome these disadvantages, and they too can become whatever they want. And Peter Dutton sends the same message to stupid people. Okay? So it's important, folks. It's important that we keep him there because it knows, everyone knows they got a shot. They got a shot. They got a chance of doing it, don't they? And once again, you know, in that citizenship debate, though, you know who was a voice of reason? Corey Bernardi. And you know when Corey is the voice of reason in the room that you are fucked, yeah? Yeah, come on, right? Corey, although once again there were calls to ban the burqa because there was paranoia about the Muslims and the Muslims threatening our way of life and all this rubbish. There was this talk about, you know, we've got to ban the burqa because if you don't ban the burqa, people are going to wear the burqa into banks. They're going to wear it into banks and they're going to use the burqa to rob a bank. They'll go in there and no one will be able to identify them because of the power of the burqa. Now, look, I don't know how you feel about that, people of the Athenaeum, but to me, if you can go into a bank in full burqa, pull off an armed rob, and make a getaway on foot without peripheral vision or the ability to run, you deserve double, man. Are you kidding me? That shit is amazing. You are channeling the spirits of Farlap and Ned Kelly all at the same time. It's the most Australian thing ever. But all this supposedly Australian stuff, though, folks, it's meant to be, like, people kind of make these arguments about, you know, like, oh, it suggests this fear of women in burqa. We're all being harassed by women in burqa. Is that a big problem? Just never been walking along late at night when suddenly from behind some bushes there emerges a woman in burqa. She punches me in the face, kicks me when I'm down and runs off cackling. You don't know what I look like. I pursue her, pull the burqa off. There's another burqa underneath. Ah, babushka burqa. No. It's not a thing that happens very often, is it? No. I remember walking through the city and come upon a gang of women in burqa. As I walk past, one of them jumps out, kicks me really hard and jumps back in the group, and they all start bobbing up and down. Nothing to see here, just a burqa go round. But ladies and gentlemen, it begs the question, what is it to truly be an Australian? Because that is what conservatives and the right like defining. They like telling everyone what it is to be an Australian. And I'm gay, I'm from Canberra, I don't like racism, I'm a bad Australian in a lot of ways, yeah? And so I have spent a lot of the last few months collecting things that I think are Australian, right? And I think there are two things that are truly Australian. Firstly, getting drunk, and secondly, having a sense of humour. And I think the most Australian, or the second most Australian thing I've ever seen happened on a tram not long ago. I was drunk, so was everyone else on the tram, very Australian tram. But there was clearly a king amongst us, yeah? He was a skater boy, and we knew he was the drunkest of all of us because he was trying to skate the tram, right? Which, you know when you're drunk, you know, when people are too drunk, because most people know to balance their weight against the tram, whereas this guy was trying to surf and he kept falling over, right? And the tram stops and a whole bunch of people get off and a whole bunch of people get on. And Skater Boy suddenly stood up real tall and moved directly to the open doors, right? And then he began vomiting out of those tram doors. Now, can I just be clear for you people of the Athenaeum? You know, sometimes you have a cheeky little chin vom and things kind of pull in unpleasant places, and it's bad, but it's not too bad. This was not one of those voms, yeah? This was a full-blown projectile vom. Out the tram doors. And then the doors began closing. Yeah, right? So he's there, the whole tram's watching him, the doors are closing, the doors are closing, he's there, the doors are closing, the doors are closing, and the door's shut, and he stopped, and not a drop got on the inside. And the whole tram burst into spontaneous applause. And the guy turned around, took a bow, and fell over. It was amazing, ladies and gentlemen. There was a guy with a kid there, he bumped him, said, "That's how you do it, son." That, to me, is the second most Australian thing I have ever seen. But the most Australian thing, ladies and gentlemen, happened on Australia Day earlier this year. There was an inebriated bogan gentleman trying to get into a nightclub, and there was a bouncer, an African chap, who wasn't letting him in. And the bogan was saying, "Oh, come on, mate, let me in." And the bouncer said, "No, sir, can't come in. You are too inebriated." And the guy said, "Mate, what the fuck's wrong with you? It's fucking Australia Day. Are you a bit fresh off the boat or something? Get into the spirit of it." And the bouncer didn't miss a beat. He said, "Very well. Fuck off, we're full." Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Toby Halligan. Or Shelley Morris, as some people call me. Have a great night.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Toby Halligan on 2 hours' notice. We're right. We're getting into the meat of the year, folks. We're getting into we're up to June, aren't we? And so, before we go any further, I thought this might be a good time to acknowledge, do we have the work of the Wheeler Centre throughout the year, and in particular, where's Michael Williams? Is Michael Williams in the house? Where are you, Michael? Come on. Stand up, Michael Williams. For those who can see him, is he down there in the centre? I can't see him. I want to hug him. Where's he? He sat back down again. Oh, he's up there. See where the head of the Wheeler Centre puts himself at the show of the year. Look at that generous placement. That's the kind of man he is, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Williams. But I won't hug him because too far. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to restore a little decorum, I think you'll agree. The Leader of the Opposition in the Senate, Ms. Penny Wong.
A tribute to Joan Kirner. Joan Kirner died on Monday, the 1st of June 2015, aged 76. So tonight, I remember her passing, and I also celebrate her life and her legacy. We best remember Joan as the first and only woman to serve as Premier of Victoria. But I want to start with the personal. For me, Joan was the most personal of political figures, and no one who came into contact with her could fail to be touched by her warmth. No one from politics, no one from business, and certainly no one from the community sector. Joan listened, encouraged and counselled, and when the occasion demanded it, she provided comfort with a hug. I loved spending time with Joan, a feeling I know I shared with many. As the founder of Emily's List Australia, Joan was a friend and mentor to me and to many other Labor women seeking to enter the Parliament. She was a strong supporter of affirmative action rules that helped change the culture of the Labor Party and brought a wave of progressive women into national and state politics. Like Joan, I believe our parliaments should reflect the society they represent. And all Australians have Joan to thank for her efforts to make that aspiration a reality. Joan dedicated her life to the service of others, and in each phase of her life she demonstrated principle, courage and determination. Those of us who knew Joan knew what strong views she held. Yet she never allowed a disagreement to overcome friendship nor detract from the pursuit of a common cause. Joan first came to public attention as head of the Victorian Federation of State Schools Parent Clubs in the early 1970s, and she remained an advocate for education throughout her life. She was elected to the Victorian Parliament in 1982, an election that saw Labor return to office after 27 years on the opposition benches. And just 3 years later, she was appointed Minister for Conservation, Forest and Lands, and in that portfolio she established the Land Care Program and created new national parks. In 1988, Joan was appointed Minister for Education, and here Joan's reputation as a reformer was made with the introduction of the new Victorian Certificate of Education. Joan became Deputy Premier in 1989, and on the 9th of August 1990, Joan Kirner became Victoria's first and only female Premier, following the unexpected resignation of John Cain. There were no easy days in the Kirner Premiership. The state economy was in strife, and internal dissension within the caucus and the Labor movement undermined Joan's attempt to get the government back on track. Under her leadership, the state government took some hard decisions, including the sale of the State Bank of Victoria. As Premier, Joan Kirner was the subject of unprecedented personal vitriol. Derogatory labels and snide comments about her dress became the norm in a heated political environment encouraged by the opposition, a hostile press and internal division. An environment that might sound familiar to those of us who serve with the first woman to be Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. Joan did not buckle, but Labor did suffer a devastating electoral loss in 1992, and after serving in the Shadow Ministry for a short period, Joan resigned her seat in May 1994, succeeded by a future Labor Premier, Steve Bracks. But of course she kept working when she left the Parliament. Some of that work in the public gaze, but much of it in the community, doing the sort of work that doesn't generate headlines but makes our world a better place. Joan remained a passionate advocate for Melbourne's West, a community she loved and one that loved her in return. Joan supported a myriad of women's and arts organisations and many progressive causes, including the Campaign for Reproductive Rights. And she loved the Essendon Football Club. I was honoured to be present at Joan's state funeral, also in June, surrounded by people who adored her and appreciated her. I miss her dearly. Joan's legacy will endure, not just for the state she led, the causes she championed, or the women she supported into Parliament, but for our daughters, yours and mine, who will benefit from the example and the work of a woman who maintained women could do anything and led the way. Thank you, Joan Kirner.
Penny Wong, ladies and gentlemen.
No. I was going to. Come on, Claire. Just Claire. I'll talk to you after, Penny.
Ladies and gentlemen, for July. July, is that right? I've got it right. Would you please welcome historian Ms. Clare Wright.
Marc's right, you can't see a bloody thing from up here. On Friday the 31st of July this year, Melburnians woke to a crisp, clear morning with light breezes and expected top temperature of 14 degrees. Perfect weather for the fleet of hot air balloons that could be seen dotted across the dawn sky. It was a benign start to a day that would ultimately carry this headline news story. Melbourne shivers through coldest July in 20 years, with wind chill adding to the pain. An Arctic vortex, it seems, had settled over Victoria. Not so in Baghdad. In Baghdad, on the 31st of July, the mercury maxed out at 50 degrees Celsius. The Iraqi capital was declared the hottest city on the planet. Meanwhile, next door in Bandar Mashar, Iran, the heat index soared to 73 degrees Celsius. The heat index, for those of you new to meteorology, measures the combination of air temperature and dew point, that is, humidity, or what the temperature actually feels like outside, as American weather boffin Anthony Sagliani explained to those trying to get their heads around the bewildering numbers. In the last week of July, the Middle East, a place where you want to slip, slop, slap at the best of times, experienced a heat wave so ferocious that the government of Iraq declared a 4-day heat holiday. Hundreds of Iraqi demonstrators, carried along on a tide of sweat, took to the streets of Baghdad to protest against widespread electricity and water shortages. Protesters blamed the lack of investment in infrastructure on government corruption, though analysts pointed out that the country's electricity grid was severely damaged by US bombing during the 2003 invasion. Wherever the finger was pointed, on whichever side of the equatorial divide you either sweltered or shivered, Arctic vortex or heat dome, experts were united in pointing out that these extremes in temperature were not anomalies, but part of a new weather pattern brought on by climate change. Research published in the journal Nature Climate Change in October this year predicted that extremely dangerous heat waves, now seen once every 20 years or so, would become the normal summer day. The most extreme conditions would, I quote, exceed what a human body may be able to tolerate. Scary as they are, these sorts of dire predictions are nothing new. barely even newsworthy. Many of us now simply ingest the doomsday anecdotes and statistical evidence along with our cornflakes. Another day, another bowl of blah blah soggy blah. Now, I suspect some of the ennui and complacency lies in the language of climate change. Like shit, change happens. The process seems given, natural. The fluidity oddly fixed. As an historian, my whole professional existence is predicated on charting the winds of change. How, when, where, why, never whether. So the climate is changing, sure, but what isn't? When we count the cost of change on a philosophical abacus, the beads roll something like this. Industrial capitalism, extractive economies, and technological advances have some bad consequences, yep. But modern medicine, 24/7 heat and light, and first world sanitation practices have been good, right? Where is the tipping point in this sort of moral accounting? The inevitability implied in the word change leads to point and counterpoint ad nauseum, encouraging and indeed, I'd argue, excusing political inertia. But have you noticed that a new phrase to describe what is happening from Baghdad to Ballarat is entering the vernacular? Climate justice. Climate justice suggests goals, ambitions, outcomes, and importantly, the concept inspires action. Many of you will have seen Naomi Klein's recent documentary, This Changes Everything, based on her book of the same name. Klein's thesis is that climate crisis, as she calls it, needs to spur political transformation. It's time to stop running from the full implications of the crisis, Klein argues, and begin to embrace them. I reckon that the radical nature of Kleinian thinking is not only in her strident female outspokenness, but also her optimism. Like a heat-seeking missile, she finds outbursts of environmental activism in global nooks and crannies, examples of towns and cities around the world where people, ordinary people, little people, otherwise disenfranchised people, are taking power back. Importantly, Klein shows that political transformation requires building diverse alliances, including with farmers, traditional conservatives, and Indigenous peoples. Klein finds a few of her examples of such alliances in Australia. But I want to take this opportunity to make you aware of a couple of recent manifestations of local activism. Last year, a group of 12 Australian women, myself included, instigated the bipartisan Monster Climate Petition, requesting that the Federal Parliament take leadership, nationally and internationally, to reduce carbon emissions. The petition is neutral as to the means, but asks Parliament to respect the science. The idea of the Monster Climate Petition was inspired by the suffrage petitions of the 19th century, documents that humbly prayed for the simple yet revolutionary proposition that women should be allowed to vote. In particular, we had in mind the Victorian Monster Suffrage Petition of 1891, which rallied over 30,000 signatures in 6 weeks, the largest petition put to an Australian Parliament to that date. In about as much time, the Monster Climate Petition, headed by lead practitioner Fiona Stanley, amassed almost 72,000 pen and ink signatures. This was not clicktivism. Women all over the country walked into their local schools, sporting clubs, churches and supermarkets and came out with reams of signed paper. Professor Judith Brett and Mary Crooks, the director of the Victorian Women's Trust, took the bundles of petitions to Canberra in wheelie suitcases. 20 federal politicians came out to meet us on the lawns for a handover on the 3rd of December 2014, coincidentally, Eureka Day. Not one of those MPs, I should mention, was from the government. Despite the fact that the Monster Climate Petition was one of the largest in the past 10 years, and despite being tabled in Parliament in February this year in 3 tranches, one by Independent Cathy McGowan, one by Greens MP Adam Bant, and one by Labor's Mark Butler, the Minister for the Environment, Greg Hunt, has yet to deliver us a response. One of the delightful things about grassroots activism is that, unlike cornflakes, it comes in a surprising array of forms. Hence we have the local band of merrymakers with dead serious intent called the Climate Guardians. This group of women, teachers, students, mothers, grandmothers, have been rampaging around Paris for the past 2 weeks, dressed as angels, complete with taffeta feathers on wings of spectacular span. The angels, by the way, recently occupied the roof of Greg Hunt's electorate office. I'm not sure whether he responded to that more direct form of action. If you want to see some of the photos of these incredible women, go to Climax. In Paris, these Australian angels have captivated the world's attention with their grace, their forbearance, their feathers, and their placards. Coal kills. Climate justice. I like this turn of phrase. I like this turn of events. And ever the optimist myself, I predict that 2016 is going to be a good year for the Big Four. I don't mean the mega banks, though I'm sure they'll do just fine. I'm talking about reconciliation, gender equality, human rights, and climate justice. 4 orientations on a universal compass that might just help us get our bearings. Happy New Year.
That's Clare Wright, ladies and gentlemen. And look, I'm up here. It's always so exciting to get to come up here and imagine myself as being Shakespearean. Hello, folks under there. Wherefore art thou, Romeo? I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we are currently in the process of doing something on the stage that we have not done before in a show of the year. We have flown in a screen. This is exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome First Dog.
Good evening, Patriots. It is an honour to be here this evening. To be a part of this important conversation about our nation's future. Agility, innovation, ideas boom, and of course, my favourite, revenge. What a year 2015 turned out to be. It was far too interesting for its own good. And it is especially an honour to be once again asked to do anything really with the Wheeler Centre. Mr. Michael Williams and his team are really the jewel in the cultural crown of our wonderful city. We're so lucky to have them. They've been doing it for 5 years. You know, I would clap if my fins could meet together. For 5 years. Now, and the new logo they have, I think, is much better than the old one, even though it still captured the spirit of the original idea. But just quickly on Mr. Michael Williams, who I believe is in the audience, hiding up the back in the middle somewhere. He was kind enough, isn't he handsome? He was kind enough to launch my new book on Monday night, and I tell you this not because I want to talk about how I have a new book out, although I do. I want to express my gratitude. He does so much for all of us content creators, and he spoke so eloquently for about 10 minutes about how my publisher ABC Books is licensed to HarperCollins, which is owned by News Corp, and that means I now work for Rupert Murdoch. So I just wanted to say thanks for pointing that out, Michael, to everybody. Michael Williams is a man without a Wikipedia entry, a man without a Walkley, a man who has never published a book, and yet he runs one of the most important cultural institutions in this country that deals with the written word. What a success story he is. How does he do it? And I just thought it only fair that I return the favour and that he returns the preview copy of my book. You can leave it on the table out the front. Thank you, Michael. But enough about him. The question for tonight is, was August 2015 the schadenfreudiest month of the year? Two of our nation's greatest villains of modern times in sport and politics were forced to resign in disgrace. August was so great. We have James Hird, the AFL's golden boy, from premiership winning captain to a coach who accidentally, that's me doing quote marks, that's a shark, accidentally oversaw a sports doping regime that was as extensive and terrible as it was incompetent and useless. And then, of course, the Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop. What a time to be alive, all right? Now we'll get Hirdy out of the way. First up, Hirdy really brought all of this on himself. There he is. He appeared to have Abbott-like levels of delusion as the drug scandal unfolded over the years. It's still going. One of the key factors in his downfall was that the Bombers were beaten by the Western Bulldogs on Sunday, August the 2nd, by 83 points. And 2 weeks later, Hird was gone. I should declare, of course, I have an interest here. I am, in fact, the official cartoonist of the Western Bulldogs. And I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, it's just an interesting coincidence. The Wheeler Centre doesn't have an official cartoonist, does it, Michael? I can't hear you? Okay. Hird's tale is a really sad one because there are no winners. Young men were poisoned by greedy idiots, basically. So can we draw any parallels between James Hird and Bronwyn Bishop? No, okay. Well, that makes it a lot easier. I'll just do Bronwyn. Now, in August, Tony Abbott's Prime Ministership was in a death spiral so deadly and so spirally we could hardly bear to watch. It was fantastic. It was terrible. And it was a matter of when, not if. And yet, it was still a fabulous time. Why did he do stuff like that? It was still a fabulous time to be in Australia if you were a mining company, someone who poops out money for a living, or even a cartoonist. It was a glorious golden age. Of course, it was a very different Australia if you were, say, a woman, an Aboriginal Australian, an onion, perhaps an asylum seeker, even a scientist, or just someone who believed in climate change. Anyone enthusiastic about facts, logic, the truth. This was sadly not your time. August was not your month. 2015 was not your year. This was a time for you to stay in your house, if you had one, and lie behind the couch when the doorbell rang. In August, madness crowed bloodily, roaming the streets and the halls of our institutions, none more so than our very own federal parliament. And I should thank Mr. Mike Bowers of The Guardian for any of these pictures that are funny, he took most of them. There were some seriously vicious folks in the Abbott government, and most of them are still there. The calls are coming from inside the house. But the most fabulous, the most like a supervillain, and it was a wide field, was of course the Speaker of the House, the honourable member for Mackellar, Bronwyn Bishop. Now, Bronwyn's crime wasn't to stick her snout in the trough. All the pollies in Canberra do that, except of course for Senator Wong, Her Majesty. But all the others do. Bronwyn's crime was to get caught when the government needed Australians to focus on Labor's newly announced $600 billion carbon tax, which the government made up. She was so terrible, she was even too terrible for the Abbott government. That is how terrible she was. Accordingly, at the time, I wrote a poem which explains everything. Here is Madam Speaker in full flight. Her giant hair gleams in the light. She's shrieking at her entourage. The Bentley stays in the garage. I refuse to travel in a car like a bunch of mussels in a jar. Yeah. You see what I did there? A Liberal Party beckons. I simply won't spend extra seconds driving like some sort of peasant. I did it once. It's most unpleasant. An hour trapped on the M1 to drive from Geelong, to drive to Geelong from Melbourne. There she is. The roads are not for folks like moi. I'll fly there by helicopter. That is the best line I wrote all year. So, if you want to applaud that, thank you. No, thank you very much. It doesn't get any better than that. Actually, go get a second chopper for my hair. Her bouffant shrieked beneath the rotors. To Clifton Springs, don't spare the motors. That was her hair's voice. Now, $5,000 does sound like a lot for a helicopter. $5,000 may seem a rort, yet it's a bargain. Here's the sort of transport that she didn't like. No jewel-encrusted motorbike. A diamond blimp that was refused. A golden tuk-tuk never used. Yet in the end, the truth did out. The punters somehow heard about dear Madam Speaker's fancy travel. And as the story did unravel, it didn't pass the sniffing test. So she paid it back with interest. Yet $90,000 more was spent on touring around the continent, a European interview for a job that she might do. My concern is for the nation, was her rationalisation. So Madam Speaker came a cropper, though it wasn't for the chopper, it was for distracting all the hacks from Labor's secret carbon tax. The voters cry, it's just not fair, yet Madam Speaker does not care. I don't know why there's all this fuss. For Polly's wrought, 'twas ever thus, although 'twill be worth every cent should Bronwyn leave the Parliament. Thank you very much.
First dog, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting to the pointy end of the stick as far as the year goes, I think you'll agree. We're heading into September. And to sing us a gentle song of September, I believe, a wonderful cabaret artist. I would like you to welcome to the stage, if you would, Tina Del Twist.
sky. You know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by. You know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me. I need a hand down. I need a hand down. It's a new life for me. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. And I'm feeling good. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. My name is Tina, and this is Twist. Please put your hands together for Twist. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tina, and this is Twist. Please put your hands together for Twist. We truly are so excited to be here. You know, we've been traveling all around the world now, touring, haven't we, Twist? We just went to Tokyo, and then we went to Japan, and then to Asia. And out of all of those places, the one place that we always love to come back and perform in is, of course, here in Auckland. So thank you so, so much for having us. We're going to do a song for you now that's it's about our hometown of Australia. We're very upset that we can't be there at the moment. And this one is about a little intern that I know there by the name of Tony Abbott. And this song is about his lifetime style. Once I lived the life of a millionaire. Spent all my money, I just didn't care. Took my friends out for a good time. Bought booklet whiskey, champagne and wine. Then I began to fall so low. Lost all my friends, had nowhere to go. If I get my hands on that dollar again, I'm gonna hang on to it till Captain Cook wins, 'cause nobody knows you when you're down and out. In your pocket, not one penny, Wong. And as for good friends, you ain't got any, you ain't got any, you ain't got any. Say everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Say everything's gonna be alright. 'Cause everything's gonna turn, boy. number is about our Prime Minister, the wonderful Malcolm Fraser. When he was a young boy, about the age of 5, his father said, "You're gonna be the greatest man alive." Now he's the PM and he's past 61. You better believe it, baby, he's gonna have lots of fun. Ooh, he's gonna have lots of fun. You've seen him in leather, you've seen him in white, you've seen him on Q&A, you've seen him put up a fight, you've seen him on the front line, you've seen him out the back. You may see him tomorrow. Can he pick up the slack? Woo! Woo! With 1 foot forward, he'd better not sway, 'cause the way this door's revolving, he may not be here to stay. 'Cause that's how it goes. Well, that's how it's been. Yeah, that's how it goes now, baby. That's what we've seen. 'Cause nobody knows you when you're down and out. Now 1 penny in your pocket today, the dollar's amount. 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 Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. No, I need my drinks on. Get your hands off me. Applause until I leave the stage, or else it's awkward.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tina Del Twist.
It's a pleasure, my dear. We're charging into the last quarter of the year, ladies and gentlemen, and to represent October, a gentleman from Pakistan who has had the distinct pleasure of appearing on QI with Stephen Fry, a comedian, a scholar of our times. Would you please welcome Mr. Sami Shah?
Good evening. My name is Sami Shah. I am a comedian from Pakistan. It's true, no one would make that up. It's a terrible lie. No benefit to that lie. No, it's true. I moved here from Pakistan 3.5 years ago because I was sick of the political instability in Pakistan. And fuck happened, you guys? I think one more change of government and Australia is officially an African nation. I want a machete for the next election now is what I am after. No, it's been strange. It's been very weird. I've got friends in Pakistan who call me up regularly and they're like, what the fuck is going on in Australia? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe you should invade and install a working democracy. I have no idea what to do. But no, it's been fascinating because I came here and there was first Julia Gillard, then there was there's Julia Gillard, then Kevin Rudd, then Tony Abbott, then and now Michael Turnbull. And I don't know if any of you miss Tony Abbott, but I do a little bit. I do. I'll be honest. It's one of those things where it's the kind of government as a Pakistani that I could recognize, and that's not a compliment necessarily. But it was a strange thing. I think the problem is that Tony Abbott doesn't get enough credit for one thing, which is it's a fact. Whether we like him or not or anything, he stopped the boats, right? That's the big thing. He stopped the boats. They always bring it up. Tony Abbott stopped the boats. Although I always feel like we don't know whether he stopped the boats because it's a military operation on the waters, and you can't really know the facts about a military operation. I don't know how it's a military operation. How can you have a military operation against civilians? This isn't fucking Gaza. But he stopped the boats. He stopped the boats. He stopped the boats. Although I never really understood why that was such a good thing, because everyone's like, oh, they're seeking asylum illegally. I don't know how many ways to explain this to Australians. You can't seek asylum illegally. It's not a thing. It's as if like you're being chased down the road by a guy with a knife, right? And he's coming after you and you're running, and you go into the police station and you say, there's a guy with a knife and he's going to stab me. And the cop goes, yes, I know, but you came in through that door and that's not right. Go home, fill out an application form online, submit that to us, we'll get back to you in 3 to 5 years, and that's the way it's done, you know. But he stopped the boats. He stopped the boats. Although they always use weird words as well, like it's a very political thing where they use this rhetoric that I don't understand, like queue jumpers. I'd never heard that phrase until I came to Australia, queue jumpers. And I don't think Australians realize there's no fucking queue, right? There's no queue, there's no orderly lines forming outside the borders of Australia. And even if there were, Australia's an island continent, like where would those lines be forming? In the ocean. Like what would they be standing on? On fucking boats. Like that's how but they stopped the boats. They stopped the boats. Although everyone always says, yeah, but the economic migrants, right? Like, which hasn't proven to be true. Like every time, even like at the most extreme cases, they always turn out to be, at least 95% of them turn out to be genuine asylum seekers and refugees and stuff. But and even if they are economic migrants, I think you're misunderstanding what an economic migrant is. From a third world country. It's a guy from Indonesia who has to choose between eating and dying. And that's why it's not like a British guy a backpacker who came here and ran out of money and he's like, now I'll make coffee. Like it's not the same thing. But they stopped the boats. They stopped the boats. Although I always think like it would be a lot more honest if they just said what they really meant, which is asylum seekers, refugees, queue jumpers, if they just said no more brown people. Because that's what they really mean. We're sick of the brown people kind of coming in. Because let's be honest, if like a boat full of Irish refugees washed up in Bunbury tomorrow and they got off, we'd all be like, oh my God, they have red hair and freckles and they speak in limericks. Like they're so adorable. Let's make them bartenders. Like no. But they stopped the boats. They stopped the boats, you know. Although, it's one of those things now where I just found out this recently that they spent in the last fiscal year, they spent over $900 million in offshore detention processing and in offshore detention maintenance, which is over $900 million to house, process, and then abuse 1,500 men, women, and children, right? And that's not counting the $55 million that the government's paid to Cambodia to house, process, and abuse 4 refugees over there. And this is all after the fact that we just were told that Australia is taking in 12,000 refugees from Syria at the cost of $600 million. But you can't think about that math too much because Bachelorette is on. So fuck it, let's watch that instead. Let's stop the boats. We'll stop the boats. I'm Sami Shah. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you.
Sami Shah, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, now let's see, it says October. I'm waiting for it to tick over. I think we're almost, November. This is where I know we did, and the band played Waltzing Matilda before, but this is where the song went that we were originally going to do. So we'll do it here. This is the new one written for the show. Shannon. Yesterday at lunchtime, I clambered from my chair to get a fix of summer sun and fresh December air. Wandering through Kensington in contemplative mode, I found that I'd meandered to the end of Racecourse Road. So I snuck into the mounting yard we all remember well. A roughie from New Zealand, a jockey named Michelle, and all the other legends who had trod that hallowed turf. But suddenly one spoke to me from down beneath the earth.
For every sun, a little rain. For every taste of pleasure, there's a countervailing pain. For every wave, an undertow, and I should know. From the day I started running, they knew that I could fly. 20 starts in foreign parts from Ireland to Dubai. And I tried to heed each jockey's needs, each handler's demands. I made $8 million for the owners in the stands. And they brought me here where every year ambition was denied. Saddled up and bridled, but never quite the bride. I did my best to draw abreast. I galloped from the gate. But this is what I learned as I turned into the straight. For every give, a little take. For every beaming bookie, there's a bone about to break. For every quid, a quid pro quo, and that's all I know. The voice fell silent, but bursting from a pack, the shadow of a brilliant beast went screaming up the track, whipped into a frenzy of adrenaline and pace, running to the judge as though the finish were the race. And when he passed the post, 1,000 ghostly voices roared. Still I couldn't bring myself to stand there and applaud. Saddled up and bridled, I went back to work instead. The ghost of Red Cadeau reverberating in my head. For every sun, a little rain. For every taste of pleasure, there's a countervailing pain. We love our cups to overflow, but even so, mind how you go. Remember Red Cadeau.
Thank you very much. Oh, now we've got a thing. We've got to do some stage recalibration and get the lectern back out again for the next speaker. Hang on. We need to. While we're still in November, got to take the opportunity to do this. Give me some clicks, people. Come on.
Paris in the springtime. I love Paris in the fall. I love Paris in the winter when it drizzles. I love Paris in the summer when it sizzles. I love Paris every moment of the year. I love Paris. Why do I love Paris? Because Jane Caro's here. Come on, Jane, come on out there.
Paris every moment of the year. Sing along if you know the words. I love Paris. Why do I love Paris? Because Jane Caro is here. But I should say... Sorry, I should say very quickly, Jane, before you speak, that that's not the theme music Jane wanted for her particular topic. So let me just... There is nothing like a dame, nothing in this world. There is nothing you can name that is anything like a dame. Jane Caro.
Thank you so much. In November, my ex-Prime Minister, wasn't that a wonderful thing that happened just a little earlier? Well, what that meant, of course, was that Philip lost his honorific. Went from being Sir to just plain old Prince. What a come down, really. And, of course, honorifics in general have become a little unpopular, particularly in Australia. Funny place, Australia. I've noticed them disappearing at a great rate. Nobody's Mr., Mrs., what's that dreadful Ms? Not even Professor or Doctor anymore. The only people who get an honorific, as far as I can see, in Australia these days are drivers in taxis. I can't keep that English accent going any longer. I just have to let that go. I use an honorific in a cab, you know, because I know what side my bread is buttered. I know who's got the wheel. So I say, driver, slow down. Occasionally, not nearly so often, driver, speed up. But mostly, because I come from Sydney, I say, driver, please turn off Alan Jones. Kind of splendid. It's a kind of retro moment, wasn't it? When for just a little while there in Australia, we had nights and we had what is more splendid than a night. We had dames. And there is nothing on earth more wonderful than a dame. Dame Edna Everidge is a very strong Australian tradition showing just how splendiferous a dame can be, even if he is a bloke. And I think that's the thing about Tony, really, that he did take us back to a previous age. And it was kind of interesting because what I really thought was very interesting about that was it kind of backfired in ways that I don't think Tony expected. Because I don't know about you, but I knew the rot had set in when people who had previously, God knows why, quite liked Tony Abbott, started to call him a fool. Did anyone else hear that as the most used adjective around Tony Abbott? And it happened to be almost instantaneously coincidental with the time that he made Prince Philip a knight. That we started to hear Tony Abbott referred to by said taxi drivers, even those with Alan Jones on. He started to be described as a fool, which was sad for Tony because in the era in which he would indeed have felt most comfortable, being a fool was an honourable position. No, it really was. Knights and dames, you know, kings had fools, we had Tony Abbott. So I think he thought it was going to work out somewhat differently. He thought we were going to greet him with jolly japes and applause, and it's not quite what happened. I was particularly interested in the Knights and Dames. I thought it was splendid. I had high hopes of possibly being a dame. Otherwise, the closest I was going to get was a pantomime dame, and then somebody pointed out to me that they were all blokes in dresses as well. What is it about dames and blokes in dresses, I'd like to know. But then I realised too just how totally sexist knights and dames really are, because this is really interesting. A knight's wife automatically becomes a lady. It doesn't matter whether she's a drunken slut, really. She's married a knight, She's a bloody lady. Don't you forget it. But a dame's husband? Nothing. Nada. He's a nothing. He's a dame's husband. That dame's husband. That's what he is. Isn't that interesting? But why don't they become a dame? What would you call him? A daimler? I don't know what you call him. Anyway, he doesn't get called anything. Because it's really interesting that what it reveals is that a woman cannot pass on her status to a man. It only works the other way around. Did you know, because look, for those of you who don't know, I write historical novels about Queen Elizabeth I. So I can pretend to be a Republican all I like, but I'm really into this shit. Like downstairs in the green room, Penny Wong was saying, what's the name of that couple that, you know, were here recently? And I said, was it the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge or the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall? And all those hip young people looked at me like I was a complete asshole. It's probably true, and I was. But I do know this shit. Did you know that Princess Diana was supposed to be called the Princess Charles? That was her official title. You don't believe me? Do you reckon Princess Michael of Kent was christened Michael? And it was just a coincidence that she married a guy called Michael? Because I don't. And I often wonder that, you know, because why wasn't it ever, I mean, forget the fact that he became a knight, which was kind of odd when you're already a prince, but why is it that no one ever suggested that Prince Philip be Prince Elizabeth? Why not? I mean, and the really glaringly obvious one, why wasn't an Anthony Armstrong Jones, that jumped up pipsqueak of a common photographer, called Prince Margaret? Personally, I think it would have suited him down to the ground. And I'm bloody sure it would have suited Princess Margaret. So, knights and dames, I love the kind of oldie-worldy thing about them. I thought that was nice. But I did get a bit annoyed about the sexist side of it. But I do think that there is one intense upside now for the couple of people, apart from Prince Philip, who actually were fortunate enough to crack being made a knight, an Australian dame. Because now, Dame Quentin Bryce, married to poor old plain Michael Bryce, and Sir Peter Cosgrove, married to the much more fortunate Lady Anne, what they have become, because they just snuck through that little window of time, are like curios on Antiques Roadshow. You know, in a few years' time, when Antiques Roadshow comes down under, I reckon we should grab Quentin, grab Peter, put them in a little suitcase, take them down to whatever splendid, stately home, or passes for one in Australia anyway, take them out and show them to one of those old folks from the UK and ask them how much they're worth. Thanks very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the delectable Jane Caro. Give it up, come on. As we head into December, our next two gentlemen really need no introduction, but I'll give one anyway. They are currently engaged in a season at the Beckett Theatre at the Malthouse until Sunday, after which they are transferring to the Sydney Opera House and running all the way through to, was Christmas Eve, all the way through to Christmas Eve. And it is a kid. You say it's a kids' show. Let's let this audience decide for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Listies!
Yes, hello. We're the Listies. My name's Rich and this is Matt.
And my name is Matt. Well, Rich, these kids are much bigger than the ones we're used to.
No, they're not kids. They're not kids.
Some of them are a bit boozy.
No.
Yes, aren't they? Look at them. Hi, kids.
No, they're not kids, Matt. They're not kids.
No, they haven't been kids for a while. Hi.
No. They're not kids. Remember, we're doing the show about the calendar and we got a month.
Did we?
They gave us a month.
What month?
You know what month?
November.
No. Not November.
Nope.
No. We got December.
December.
Yeah.
Oh.
What happens in December?
Hanukkah.
Well, I mean, yes, it does.
Kwanzaa.
No, yeah, well, I mean,
Star Wars comes out.
it does, yes.
Woohoo!
It does come out.
I am your father.
No, it's Christmas. Matt, we're doing a bit about Christmas.
I am your father, Christmas.
No. No, Matt, look, that's what the outfit is about. You know, look. Green and red.
Oh.
And you were going to get us a Christmas tree.
Oh, Christmas tree.
Yeah, did you get us a Christmas tree?
Yes, I got us a good Christmas
We're going
tree.
to get a big Christmas tree just to celebrate, you know, the Christmas of the Wheeler Centre or wherever we are. And, you know, that's...
Oh, Christmas tree, I must have lost some of your branches.
That's not... Matt, that's not a very good Christmas... Where did you get it from?
From Savers.
Yeah. Matt, it doesn't even have a...
Merry Christmas.
It's not very good. It doesn't even have a star on top.
Yes, it does.
Where? Oh, good. That's pretty good.
A bright, shining star.
Yeah.
I think it's very festive.
It's more festy than festive.
Don't listen to him, Taylor. Just shake it off. Get it?
Yeah, they get it.
Woo! Hi there.
Matt, where are we going to get a new Christmas tree from?
We could get a new Christmas tree online, Rich.
Okay, cool.
I'll do it right now.
Great. What's that?
I'm using my MacBook Air.
No, all right. I didn't like it.
I'm having it delivered to the theatre.
Great, good.
Right here.
Good.
In 5, 4, 3. It's early.
Really enough. Oh, this side or that?
You go that way.
Okay,
I'll go this way.
Goes crazy when the lights come on, right? I can't find the button. Inside. It's going really well.
This is good theatre.
Yeah, it's live theatre. Here we go.
Here we go.
There we go.
Let's decorate them.
There we go. Hup, ho!
Oh.
Hup, ha!
Oh.
Hup, ha! Yeah. Hup, ha!
Hey!
Hup, ha! Hup, ha! Hup, ha! Sorry. Chuck it back. Go, have a shot. Yeah. In fact, all of you have a shot. It's all right. There we go. Yeah.
Come on.
There we go.
Come on, let's set it. Go.
Go. There we go. Whoa. Hop, hop. Hop. Not too hard. Jump. Yeah. Hop. Go.
Throw them into the crowd. That's it.
Jump.
Into the crowd.
Jump. Oh, that was a bit hard, Adam. Seriously.
Wait, I'm going to try down the sides.
The crowd goes crazy when you can get them on. Here we go. Hey, hey. Hop, ha, ha, da. Hop, ah. Anyone? Oh, so close. I'm going to give that guy one more shot. There you go, guy. Oh, no. Just hit him in the head. There we go. Excellent, good. Do one on my butt. Good.
Oh, nearly.
It's just the sort of intellectual entertainment you guys are used to tonight. Thank you very much. We've been the Listies. You've been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing. We just have to finish off our costumes. We've got the lights and the baubles. We've just got to put a big star on top. You've got an angel. There we go. Oh.
You put an angel on yours, Rich.
I've got a star on mine.
Bye, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been an epic audience for a show that has run a little long because, well, 250% more schadenfreude than usual. I'm sure it will be restored to its usual svelte figure next year. Well, that's nice. Let's just stay with that for a verse. Official duties to get out of the way at the end, you understand. We're down to our traditional renditions. So now, before the almanac is shut, the legendary ledger of omissions, the happenings that didn't make the cut. It isn't a reflection on the virtues of all the big events that should appear. Reluctantly we feel we must alert news. They missed out on the show of the year. The USA had shooting after shooting, but still along with Ireland they said yes. Turkey got a little fresh with Putin. Greece is still a monumental mess. Meanwhile, we entertained His Royal Highness. It's the kind of thing they report in New Idea. But not even those who make the 49ers get a go in the show of the year. No Shanghai slump, no Donald Trump. B.B. King and Alan Bond and Richie Benno went beyond, and what a shock! No Mr. Spock. Caitlyn Jenner missed the mark. It makes me want to punch a shark. And Iraq is still a turbulent interior. Iran have struck a nuclear accord. Massacres of thousands in Nigeria. How the hell did that one get ignored? So many scenes of war and devastation, dismissing them as cruelly cavalier. We can but watch that tragic information overflow from the show of the year. Yes, we longed for a meticulous synopsis. Instead, we're barely scratching the veneer. But quick, before the Athenaeum stops us, we're glad you made the show of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome back to the stage? I've got to go in and grab them, I think. Can I have some guests? Come on! Santilla and Nicholas and Jay and Marc, and I'm trying to... I think you know we need your voices on this one. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. La 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Don we now our gay apparel. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol. La 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 la. Oh, very good. You're getting onto it now. Now, are these all the Listies props? So the Listies really need those back after the cast have been piffing them all that year. See the blazing Yule before us. Strike the harp and join the chorus. Follow me in merry measure, la 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 la, while I tell of Yuletide treasure, la 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 la. Come on, someone's got to give it a good piff. Away the old year passes. Hail the new ye lads and lasses. Sing we joyous all together. La 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather. La 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 la. Fa la 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 la. Toby, Claire, Penny, Sammy, Wes now. You're throwing me all off. Nick. Andrew. Can I say Andrew? Is that? No. First dog! And the list operators, ladies and gentlemen, Richard, Matt. Thank you very much on behalf of us all and on behalf of the Wheeler Centre. Have a very, very Merry Christmas.